And as we've heard earlier, migration has been a decisive and divisive issue in this election campaign. Most voters say they support stricter rules on immigration, and some even believe the proposed tightening doesn't go far enough.
A series of attacks by individuals with a migration background has reshaped Germany's election. Some of the attackers should already have been deported. Although many campaign posters are still focusing on the economy, migration has emerged as the central issue in the final stretch of the race.
Well, it's very important to me, because I'm directly affected. I have a migration background myself, and I can see that this issue is deeply important to people. But many are afraid to openly say what they really think.
Migration is very important to me. I believe that those who have integrated here, work, earn money and contribute positively to our economy should stay. But everyone without a resident permit should leave immediately.
Very, very important, because I deal with this topic a lot in my professional life. I believe it must not be swept under the rug.
In response to voter sentiment, Germany's parties have made migration a cornerstone of their campaigns, and they're promising action. The centre-left Social Democrats and the environmentalist Greens have proposed more restrictive policies to curb irregular migration, including ending benefits for asylum seekers who enter Germany via another EU country, negotiating repatriation deals with non-EU countries to accelerate deportations, and extending temporary border checks. However, these measures fall short for other parties. The business-friendly FDP proposes cutting payments for all rejected asylum seekers without exception. And the Conservatives want permanent border controls and to reject asylum seekers arriving from EU neighbours. The far-right AfD supports this as well. Controversially, they label their plans a re-migration agenda. That's a term used by right-wing extremists to refer to mass deportations of migrants, including those holding German citizenship, though this is something the AfD leadership says it rejects. Despite some policy overlaps between the Conservatives and the far right, CDU leader Friedrich Merz has ruled out any coalition with the AfD.
We will not work together with the party that calls itself Alternative for Germany. We haven't before, we won't in the future, not ever.
But with Merz favoured to win Sunday's election, forming a government will require compromise. He may need to partner with the Greens or the Social Democrats, or both, to find common ground on migration, a decisive issue for many of Germany's 60 million eligible voters.
I'm now joined in the studio by political analyst Melinda Crane. Melinda, why is migration such an important and divisive issue?
Well, a recent spate of horrific attacks in a number of different German cities that were perpetrated by, or at least allegedly perpetrated by people with a migration background have put it in the absolute spotlight. But the fact is, this was an issue even last year in Germany's EU elections, in regional elections in the eastern part of the country. And that's because it has become abundantly apparent that the authorities responsible for ensuring compliance with immigration laws, as well as for overseeing the integration of migrants who've been permitted to stay, that they are absolutely overburdened. Back in 2015, when Germany opened its gates to a huge influx of 1 million immigrants, with many of them young men from Afghanistan and Syria, the chancellor, Angela Merkel, said, we can do this. We can handle this. But the fact is, neither her government nor successive governments have appropriated the kind of resources that the authorities need. So German citizens see these attacks, a couple perpetrated by people who were supposed to have been deported but weren't, others by people with serious psychiatric conditions that weren't recognized or treated, and say the government is not fulfilling its responsibility. So we have to limit the numbers.
The popularity of the far-right Alternative for Germany that has been rising and will show its effects in today's elections is closely connected to this issue of migration. And the US presidential advisor Elon Musk and also Vice President J.D. Vance have openly backed the AfD party. Is that the kind of government the US would like to see here in Germany?
Seems to be. Certainly there is a lot of synchronicity on migration or antipathy to migration. And the AfD possesses quite a number of authoritarian traits and positions that would definitely be appealing to Donald Trump. But there's a particular issue on which there's a lot of congruence, and that is deregulation of social media platforms. And the fact is that Elon Musk, J.D. Vance, this was the issue that they talked about when they were giving their endorsements for the AfD. Why is that? It's because they stand to profit if there is a rollback of regulation on content. It costs them a lot of money to do the kind of content editing to suppress hate speech or to police disinformation. If they don't have to do that, they make more money. And that is absolutely also something that the AfD wants. Why? Because hate speech and disinformation are part of their tactics. They absolutely publish and promulgate both as a way to win over voters.
Now, the possible next chancellor, Friedrich Merz, of the conservative CDU, how do you think he will approach the new US administration?
He has said he won't be timid. He says that he and other European leaders need to be self-confident when they deal with the U.S. president and that they need to come armed with some proposals for good deals. And the fact is, Merz may have a little more chance of earning Trump's respect because he's a pilot, he's a conservative, he has worked as a finance sector lawyer and served on the supervisory board of the German branch of BlackRock, the big asset management firm. All of that might appeal to Donald Trump, but the fact is Trump has Germany in his crosshairs. He thinks that Germans are mooching off of U.S. security guarantees and not anteing up enough for their own defense. He hates Germany's trade surpluses. He thinks they're taking advantage of U.S. consumers. So Friedrich Merz better come armed with some pretty good proposals in order to hope to make a deal with Donald Trump.
Now, Merz also promises strong leadership in Europe. And what could that mean for Europe's support for Ukraine?
Well, if, as it looks, the U.S. is pulling back from the transatlantic alliance that has, in fact, served to keep the peace in Europe for 75 years, then it is going to require a much stronger and more proactive role from Europe as a whole, and particularly from Germany, as Europe's largest economy and most populous EU member country, in order to counter the pullback of U.S. forces. So, for example, if Europe would like to prevent a dictated peace to Ukraine, then it's going to have to supply a lot more military support for Kiev so that Kiev can keep on fighting. That will take leadership. If Europe is to provide the forces to do peacekeeping in Ukraine following an agreement, then it is going to take a huge amount of leadership, of coordination, of common procurement within Europe. And again, Germany, as one of the EU's leading member countries, will absolutely have to step up to the plate. But whether Friedrich Merz gets the kind of coalition that will allow him to take that sort of bold action, we won't know until we see the results tonight.
And it's definitely going to be complicated. Thank you very much, our political analyst, Melinda Crane there.